Hello again. My name is Corbin, or Banesbloom if you prefer. This is the second video in a line following the 20 games challenge set up by SDG Games. The link to it is in the description if you want to know more. So, the second game in the 20 games challenge is pretty similar in scope to the first, Pong in my case. The main goals for this one are to create a game that tracks scores over multiple play sessions, plays simple sound effects, and uses code from a previous project. Since my last project was Pong, I've moved to BREAKOUT. As always, I begin on pen and paper. Again, this document wasn't referenced back to very much during the process. I did notice, however, that by virtue of not having an AI-controlled paddle, this game only really needed a total of 3 main scripts. These scripts are conceptually the same as they were in Pong. The game controller, that handles the majority of the logic for the game, the player's paddle, which takes in an input and moves accordingly, and the ball, which bounces around the level and breaks bricks if it collides with them. The first thing I did when I moved to the Godot engine was set up the things that I knew I would be using from Pong, namely the ball and the player paddle. The ball functions largely the same, except for sending out a signal and speeding up upon breaking a brick, rather than when it collides with a paddle. Its initial direction upon spawn is also constrained to send it upwards at an angle, rather than the full random vector from Pong. It's a little rough, but it gets the job done. The paddle is even simpler. All I did was switch the axis from vertical to horizontal and add in a section that snaps it back to its initial vertical position if it gets bumped out, which is an issue I noticed happening occasionally in Pong. The game controller is obviously quite different for BREAKOUT as opposed to Pong. The main gameplay loop here is mainly handled by 2 functions and a handful of signals. The check game state function does exactly what it says in the tin and checks to see if we're still playing, starting the next round or ending the run as necessary. It also runs the check score function to see if we have a score high enough to be saved. If it's not, then we run the cleanup function here. The signals here just react if the current ball enters the pit below the player, when the current ball emits its signals, and when the in-between rounds timer finishes. The main UI wasn't too much more complicated than it was for Pong, just a play button, title, and an exit button. What was more complicated was saving and displaying the game's scores between sessions, which was a stretch goal for the project. So, to save the scores, I needed a file. Easy enough. Godot's file access class will create a file if you try to open a non-existent file in write mode. So, we check if it exists, create it if it doesn't, and load the scores into an array if it does, 1 per line. There is a small problem here that if I went back or continued the process, I would have to fix. That being, the game doesn't actually check to make sure the score file is what we need it to be. It could be any file named scores.txt, and the game would try to use it, possibly causing an error or other problems. When we have a score that's high enough to save, we loop through our array to find the right spot, shuffling around the other scores as necessary. Then we load them to the scores file and run cleanup. Pretty simple. Overall, this one was more complicated, definitely. Despite the fact that I didn't have to create a rudimentary AI, the minutiae of it all was kind of overwhelming at points. And it meant I kept having moments of, I'm done! Oh, wait. No, I'm not. So, I think going forward, I'm going to have to take the phase after main development more seriously, and give it way more time. Luckily, I have some good friends who are willing to help me out with playtesting. Speaking of time, it's been a while since the Pong video. I don't have much excuse, really. Just the usual mix of school, life, and writer's block on the script for this video, which was only made worse because of how long I left it. But there's always time to get better. I think I'm going to start streaming the development of these game challenges from now on, which will happen over on my Twitch over here. There will be a link in the description as well. Hopefully this will keep me more accountable and the project more fresh in my mind. I started school a little while ago, so I'm not sure when I'll be able to start streaming, but it should be soon, and I'll probably make a post about it on my Cohost, which I post to occasionally. I didn't intend for this section to just be me plugging my links, but anyway, if you got this far in the video, you are a trooper and I am personally impressed. As always, if you have anything you're working on or excited about, let me know in the comments, because I would be really interested to hear, and we can help motivate each other. It's literally only because of my girlfriend and comments on the last video that I have the motivation to get this out. Beyond that, I hope you all have a good rest of your day. Stay safe, and I will see you guys next time.